Welcome to the Chief Joyce Dugan Cultural Arts Center on the Cherokee Central Schools campus. Our appreciation to Jay Winchester and Cherokee Central Schools, Chris McCoy from the Tribal Communications Office, Lisa Frady from Destination Marketing Department, Mike Parker from the Commerce Division, and Doug Pheasant and the officers of the Cherokee Police Department. We would like to thank the Wolftown candidates for agreeing to participate tonight. The candidates for Wolftown Community Tribal Council seats are Bo Crow, Nathaniel Bunzy Crow, Bill Taylor, and Chelsea Sanook. On behalf of the event organizers, we wish you well on each of your campaigns. There will be no opening statements from the candidates. The moderator will sit at a table with a timekeeper. If there are 3 or more candidates in attendance, a random draw will determine the order of questioning. Moderator is the only person who will ask questions, and the questions will be from a predetermined list compiled by the Cherokee One Feather based on community feedback. The public, via social media, phone, email, and the Cherokee One Feather staff were the sources for the questions. There will also be a table and staff available for community members to write in specific questions regarding their communities or other tribal issues at the event. Community questions will be vetted for appropriateness by members of the COF editorial board prior to being brought to and read by the moderator. The candidates are not to respond to any verbal questions offered by the audience during the debate. We also ask that the audience not react audibly to any comments made by the candidates in the interest of time and in respect for the host and the candidates. There will be time at the end of the discussion for audience appreciation to the candidates. The moderator will recognize a specific candidate to address a question. Once a question is asked, each candidate will have 3 minutes to respond. Each candidate will be allowed an additional 1 minute to address any follow-up. Once the formal question is concluded, vetted community questions will be asked. Up to 8 community questions will be asked in the 3-minute, 1-minute rebuttal structure. After questioning, the candidates will have 5 minutes each to make closing statements. When all the candidates have concluded their closing statements, the moderator will thank the candidates and close the debate. Those candidates who could not or chose not to attend were invited to submit a brief statement to be read in their absence. We received no such letters or notices. We will start the formal questioning now. One instruction that we didn't give you was for your microphones. There's a microphone switch in the center of each microphone, and when you're ready to talk, you just flip that up in the up position. You'll see a light come on that microphone, and you'll be able to talk, okay? First question goes to Chelsea. Chelsea, do you think people incarcerated on drug charges should be required to do community service cleanup while they are in jail, including syringe pickup?
Okay. Could you repeat the question? Sorry, we were discussing who was number 1 and 2. I thought I drew number 2.
No, I'll repeat it for you. Do you think people incarcerated on drug charges should be required to do community service cleanup while they are in jail, including syringe pickup?
I do believe that community service should be a part of what they should do while they are serving time. It allows for an opportunity for the inmate to possibly take responsibility for their actions. I'm not totally bought into the syringe pickup just because there's liability to it. I would have to know that there's a protocol as far as safety and training and what type of equipment is needed for that type of community service. That's all.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo? Same question. No, just what your thoughts are on that question.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I agree. You know, I think that we need to start having community service when people are incarcerated there. You know, and I feel the same way about Chelsea with the liability of the needle pickup. That would be, I don't really know how that would really be able to happen. I guess they'd have to have real close supervision on the needle pickup there. But you know, I've questioned for a couple of years now about being able to have them doing the trash pickup you know, even doing our own, having the inmates doing the cooking in the jailhouse. But one of them has been about why we don't have them out picking up trash and stuff while they are in jail.
Thank you, Bo. Bungie?
Yeah, I agree to community service. At one time, way back, we used to have community service when Mr. T-Stesky used to do it a long time ago. And it lets everybody give back to their community. Some of these, when you talk to them, they feel disgraced already, and they want to do things for their community. So it'd be a great opportunity. From my field when I was a safety officer, picking up needles. We do that in our community now in Big Y. I just give a lecture on safety. Also, while I'm doing that, we express the safety to the kids. The adults, I would get them gloves, and they also have trash picker-uppers, so nothing's ever touched by hand. If a kid has to find one, they tell an adult, and the adult picks it up with the grabbers to safely keep our community clean, because we do this quarterly in our community, and we find drug paraphernalia up and down the roads. But if I agree with, we need to keep community service going for all our communities to help out in that way. It would help with manpower.
Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea, you have 1 minute to say anything additional you'd like.
I guess mine would be on the budgetary piece of it. We would have to have the proper manpower to do something like this, to staff this. And so one thing is we hear about the shortages of staff amongst the, what are they called, the security guards or the jail guards. So within that, do we have the staffing to be able to do that? If we don't, where would we find that? Is there a grant funding opportunity? And so that would be something that we'd have to research.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo, 1 minute.
I believe right now about everything's been said. It'd be hard to.
Good enough. Bungie, any additional comment?
I heard that also about the staffing thing, but back then, he was by himself, and he was the probation officer, so I feel like some of the probation officers, not taking nobody from the jail to do this, but the probation officers that's in place, it may be some duties that need to be applied to the job duties, because they checking on them anyway, and so that they have to report to them, so they already have a workload of them. So it gives them opportunity to do their community service through their probation officer, which is in charge of them.
All right. Thank you, Bungie. Bo, the next question belongs to you. What constitutes a reasonable return on investment for economic diversification opportunities? Please speak to specific strategies. Include your thoughts on ecotourism, solar, and wind power.
Robert, you're going to have to repeat that.
Sure. What constitutes a reasonable return on investment for economic diversification opportunities? Please speak to specific strategies and include your thoughts on ecotourism, solar, and wind power.
You know, it is, you know, that's one thing that everybody's been talking about is, you know, getting away from the casino, going out, you know, looking for different revenues coming into the tribe. And right now, one thing that they are talking about that's real big is the convention centers. You know, that's one big business. That's one thing that's being added on up at the casino right now. But I think that it's time for us to go off the boundary. You know, we ain't got very much land here for any more diversifying. We need to start looking off the boundary to diversify. With the wind turbines, I believe there's been a study done that we're not in the part of the country for the wind turbine, that it's more on the solar side. But I completely agree. I think that on some of the hip homes, you know, some with the elders and stuff, that we could get maybe some of the solar, start adding them into hip homes, not to run the whole house, but, you know, to run the main stuff in the house. And the solar field, I know the one we done in Cherokee County right near the casino, it's doing about 18, I believe it was, no, maybe 8% of what the power is at the casino. And I can't remember what the savings was. It was real good savings that we've got done. But that's one thing I think that we do need to start looking into, the solar.
Thank you, Bo. Bungie?
Yeah, when I was with the government, I've done a lot of green technology. I even went to schooling for 8 months on energy savings and audits. The biggest return off of it is how we're making savings. Recently, just been working with the tribe for the last 90 days. There's a lot of improvements that we can make internally into buildings to make energy efficient. Going back to LED lights and changing this, that'll help out with the power bill, less power to all the facilities that the tribe has, along with solar panels. One of the projects was over our solar panels run our heating system, and it helped out with the heating bill at the facility that we was at. So the biggest revenue back will be the savings that we save in all our buildings, because the tribe has a lot of buildings that we could implement energy savings in. But the key to it is, after we get them, we have to maintain them. That's one of the things I see that we don't do. This school here is one example. It was a Golden Leaf, I believe, facility. But how much do we maintain this energy efficient here? Because if it don't, it'll run into more money down the road if we don't take preventive maintenance to keep it going the way it needs to. I think the LLC, what we have now, the Kadua, it's a great thing for the tribe, because they'll be the ones that's going to look into all our new programs that outside of our reservation that we can bring revenue back in. That'll free up the council from anybody else looking for these businesses or things that's happening in our community to bring more money back in. I've been looking into not only our solar panels, but also I've been looking into water turbines. We got a lot of water around here. And one particular water turbine I've been looking into, it can run 60 homes just off of very minimal water passing through. It's environmental friendly to the water. It gets put back into the system, and also environmental, like fish and other things, just pass right through it, so it don't do nothing to the wildlife. But there's a lot of this needs to, our land, we ain't got no more land on the reservation. So like Bo said, we have to build off the reservation to get revenue to come back in, because we're fighting that with housing. It's either housing or building something to bring revenue in.
Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea?
Yeah, well, our return on investment varies by business type, and there aren't a lot of business adventures that you can take that will generate the same return on investment as gaming, unfortunately. But our cultural revenue streams have the opportunity to dovetail with ecotourism, and ecotourism opportunities that I've thought about could be, wildlife preserves and adventure opportunities, not parks, in ziplining, ropes courses, obstacle courses, hiking, and fishing. As far as solar and wind power, Bo just killed my thunder on wind power, but as far as the solar side, we have an opportunity for solar arrays, just like how they have out in Asheville. You pass down on 40, you'll see a whole hillside of a solar array. And so, with that being said, I would like for us to look at the feasibility of a solar array on a mountainside that is in the right location, and a mountainside that is from land that was bought that's not buildable. How can we reconfigure and use it for something else? But I would like to say that I thought about a pilot run on a HIP home or a tribally owned home, a tribally provided home for solar power. But so to wrap this up for me, what I think is that if we want to be profitable we have to have entertainment and amenities that attract tourist demographics that will return year after year. And the big thing too, we have to have a return on investment strategy that we're willing to stick to and not divert resources away from just because, you know, we want a vote or something. You know, we have to stick to a strategy. We have to do it if we want to see a return on investment be successful.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo, you've got 1 minute for follow-up if you have something.
It'd be going back toward like what Bunzy had said about with our LLC program. That is one thing right now that their job is to go outside, you know, to start trying to find what would be to bring in the best revenue back to the tribe. What business off the reservation would be the best to bring into the tribe? You know, with right now the tribe, ideals has been kicked around for the last 10, 15 years now on different projects that nothing's never come back in, and that's what the LLC's job is to make sure that what the projects are, if they are worth bringing back to the tribe.
Thank you, Bo. Bungie?
Yeah, the LLC though, what keeps bringing up, it's the Seminoles and Porch Creeks have this in place now, and it's what really is making their tribe grow. But sometimes in the decision making, when they bring these businesses, it has to be done in a timely manner. For instance, the Seminoles, when they took over the Hard Rock, they had to have an answer in 24 hours, or it was a loss. So some of these that come up, it's going to be made into a quick decision, either invest in it or not, and it can't be waited and put on a shelf. Also, when we diversify and do all these things, we have to keep our culture in mind. In Albuquerque, they have all their cities based upon their culture.
Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea?
Yeah, but one thing that I would like to support too is a marketing strategy that promotes Cherokee as a family and cultural destination. We are seen just as a gaming town, and so I think that we need to pump more dollars into our marketing strategies for our cultural and family aspects of our town.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bungie, the next question belongs to you. Do you support monthly per capita distribution? I'm sorry, let me repeat. Do you support monthly per capita disbursements as a means of universal basic income for tribal members?
I think what they have in place now, it's adequate enough for families. If they want to get it, it's there for their need. If they don't need it, then it's there for the later need, because I know a lot of families like saving it to take a vacation in June, then at December, it's the family's Christmas. So I think what they have in place, if there's a hardship that comes up on somebody, there's every opportunity right now to go get it. I feel like there's a lot of grandparents, I've heard that, saying that they need the extra money. I understand that, but what they have in place, it gives people the option. I don't think it needs to be mandated to make everybody take it, because some families use it in different ways, and it helps each family, either way they go about proceeding to get that.
Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea?
I can be in support of monthly distributions as an emergency resource of income. I think that it's the monthly distributions. It's not meeting its target market. Its target was for the elderly, and so now, 18 through 40 years of age population here are taking more advantage of it. Like I said, I think if they're using it for an emergency situation, that's great, but I don't want it to be seen as an enabler too, and I can see it being a contributing factor to their unemployment as well. So I support it as far as an emergency situation, but it's tough to see our tribal employees become dependent on it.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo?
In my personal opinion, kind of like the way it's set up right now, you know, the 6 months, but that's just my personal opinion, you know. If any time before it could be changed, though, you know, it'd have to go into a referendum vote, so it would have to be put out to the entire reservation. But if they wanted to go to a monthly, and it went out referendum and passed, you know, I'd be fine with it. But right now, in my personal opinion, I agree with the 6 months.
Thank you, Bo. Bunzy, you got 1 minute to follow up if you'd like. You good? Chelsea, 1 minute? You're good? Bo, you need any additional? All right. Next one is for you, Chelsea. With substance use, boy, sorry. With substance use disorder being an increasingly significant concern for tribal members, should the tribe harshen punishments continue as is or move to decriminalize illicit drug use? How do you aid our young people in getting help without the ills of the criminal justice system?
I've done some research on some around this question, and what I'd like to see is comparisons of data between voluntary treatment and court-ordered treatment, as far as evidence of success for both, and is it comparable to have court-ordered treatment, and if it is, then what does that look like? Is it 6 months to a year? And also, have we looked into what drug treatment facilities have high success rates? So as far as that goes, I would like for us to look into mandatory drug treatment. I don't feel like seeing some people's names over and over in the paper and seeing that they've plead out. I just don't know if that's the right way to go about it. And so I would like for us to get more data on the comparisons of mandatory drug treatment versus voluntary. What's the success rates of it?
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo?
You know, I agree with the mandatory drug treatment. You know, there's one thing that I would like to see you talking about with, you know, there needs to be some tougher penalties or tougher laws that's set for, you know, for the ones you see at, I guess, the ones that's there monthly. But one thing I would like to see, you know, would go with you know, our kids going off to school, if they fail a class, they have to pay back. You know, they have to pay back that class. You know, I'd like to maybe even see the tribe go in that direction with the kids that's going into rehab programs, or, you know, if they go make it if it's going to be a mandatory, you know, if it's a mandatory 30 days, and if they don't make the 30 days, you know, let them start paying back, you know, the amount of time that they wasn't in the rehab. You know, so that's one thing that I think we need to look back into. But I know some of the money, it could be IHS dollars that's funding that, and I know on some of with IHS funding that you can't make the patient pay back if they stop early. But I'm thinking that's just something that we need to go back into and look at to see what we can do.
Thank you, Bo. Bunzy?
Yeah, I know this our tribe court system does a lot of the state laws. They always say we follow the state laws, which is good, but we also don't follow to state punishment. When you get caught off the reservation with any amount of meth, it's automatic year. I feel like we follow the state laws, but we don't follow the punishment part to follow through, and that would help out tremendously, I believe, on that part. We got to follow it all the way through. We can't take bits and pieces of the law and then not do the other part, the repercussion part. Then that would, I think, would help out. And once they in there, I feel like on the research part I've done is we have a captured audience then while you incarcerated. We need to have programs going to the jailhouse to assist these people to help them get off while they're already in there. They're more likely to listen to when they're in there It may save their lives a little bit longer, but it may be something will stick while they're in there that helps them continue that when they get out, and then now we can put them into programs once they get out. And it depends on if some people are just users and some people are selling. So the penalty should be stiffer for the ones that's selling or bringing this into our community, because we do have just some that's just users, and then we have people that's taking advantage of them and bringing more stuff in to keep them on what they are. So the penalties need to be stiffer for the drug people that's bringing it in and then helping the other ones that's incarcerated while they're in there on this part. Drug court, I think, is a good thing that we have in place now that helps them get out to somewhere towards rehab. For instance, I really like the Mothertown program. They have a lot of success. We've had a lot of our young kids turn around their lives and are doing success now. If we can save one life, we're doing something. But right now, I see that's the way we need to go. I know everything don't fit everybody, but it is a success. They're doing success by helping them. And the biggest thing of it is they have to stay clean to be in this program. There's no ifs, ands about to get clean from any kind of drug. You have to be clean on that part. But yes, I would like to see something in place to help out the ones that's on this, and the ones that's bringing this into our tribe needs to be punished harder.
Thank you. Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea, 1 minute for additional comment.
So just to piggyback on what I said earlier, I would like to see a recovery plan, if that's a partnership with Mothertown, or, I don't know, the probation officer, whatever the situation is after they come out of recovery. I think we have to have a plan after. It can't just be once they go in, they come out clean and they're dropped. You know, I think that we have to have a follow-through and make sure that there's a road to success in their recovery.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo, additional comment?
I guess mine would be going back to one thing that both of them said, with the Mothertown project, that's probably one of the biggest things that we've had that's had the most kids come out that are recovering right now. Some of them step back into the tribe right now, working for the tribe. You can go down, it's just amazing watching them going down to the Kadua fields down there, watching them garden, and it's not a small garden that they use. It's probably a 2-acre garden, and anybody ever garden, you're trying to garden a 2-acre garden, and that's tough. And they get out there daily for a couple hours each day working in it. So that's one of the big things that's going good for the tribe.
Thank you, Bo. Bungie, 1 minute. Thank you, Bungie. Next question is for Bo. Do you think someone duly convicted of a felony should be allowed to run for tribal office?
I'm going to have to go back to what that would be one thing that would, because, by the way our law reads now, any convicted felon is not allowed to run for office. So that would have to come out as a referendum. It'd be hard for me to make that decision. It'd have to be a vote of the people before that could be allowed.
Thank you, Bo. Bungie?
Yeah, I agree with Bo on that part. It needs to be to a referendum, because it's just not our law. This is a national law on felonies. So you would be the only one that don't do it, I guess, if it got changed and you made a law. So it's nationwide. So whatever's in place now, if it needed to be changed, it would be, I agree with Bo, to a referendum to the people on that part, because there is part where people have changed their lives. I heard one of the candidates the other night said at their position that it was 10 years. They didn't go back no more than 10 years. I believe when I grew up way back, I think it was 7 years. On job applications, you used to, if you had anything in the last 7 years. So it's just what the tribe has in place now, and if they want to get changed, then it would be a referendum for the tribe.
Thank you, Bunzy. Chelsea?
There are some states that, after 10 years of conviction, they do allow for candidates to run. That doesn't go to say that I support it. I'm just putting that out there. I do agree that it would need to go out for referendum, and the code is what I am in support of. And I also believe that anybody running for office needs to have high integrity and have a high regard. And so we need to have these systems in place to make sure that we, or that the election board does their homework on candidates. So, that's all.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo, you got 1 minute? Okay. Bunzy, any additional comment on this question? And Chelsea, anything on that? Okay, thank you. Next question is for Bunzy. What is your stance on discontinuing drug testing of EBCI tribal employees?
Well, to me, this is all linked back to our substance abuse. I think we teach our kids in the DARE program that marijuana is the gateway to other things, and we teach that in our school here. So they teach you to sustain from any drug use. So in this drug testing, I worked for the federal government and had come to the point where if you ain't doing it, you don't have to worry about it. I worked in heavy construction before that. I don't feel like if Bo was here running a track hoe and I was in the ditch, I'd be very comfortable if I knew he was under the influence of anything. The safety features of this, it works in jobs. We have a lot of tribal members that work for our tribe that drive heavy equipment. Also, in decision making, it wouldn't be on that part. So yes, I agree to keeping our drug testing in place because it holds everybody accountability on that part.
Thank you, Bunzy. Chelsea?
I believe that, drug testing for new hires is a must, as well as testing after an accident occurs, whether it's in a vehicle or something that happens on the job site, or if there's suspicion. And so, yes, I do believe in the continuation of drug testing.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo?
Yeah, I agree too that we need to pick back up onto I know right now as a new hire you have to drug test to get a job for the tribe. But I believe what's been cut out, and that wasn't a council decision. That didn't come from tribal council. I believe it was more of an executive decision but you still drug test to be hired. And if there's anybody thinks that, you can still be drug tested even after you're hired if anybody starts suspecting any kind of different behavior or anything. But the random, in my opinion, I think we need to go back to start doing the random testing again. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Bo. Bunzy, you have 1 minute follow-up if you'd like. No? Chelsea, 1 minute? All right, and Bo, any more? All right, next question goes to Chelsea, and it's if the Catawba Indian Nation gets approved for a casino, what are your plans to help with any lost revenue?
Well, as I stated earlier, it's going to be hard for any industry to have a return on investment such as gaming. Other tribes have ventured into commercial gaming, and I think that that's something that we should assess and see what the feasibility is for our tribe to go into that market. The Catawba infiltrating, if they were to infiltrate Charlotte, that would take a third of our top line revenue away from our casino. And so it's a very big deal that we take measures to intervene with that process. But at the same time, back to what I was saying about commercial gaming, is we have the opportunity for potential markets such as Indiana, which aren't so saturated just yet, to build up our credibility, so that if there's potential of Georgia passing commercial gaming, then we would have credibility to put a bid in for a commercial gaming license there. That's just one of the return on investment opportunities that stand out, that could potentially bring in the revenue that we would need to sustain. Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo?
You know, it's what I think. You know, with if the Catawbas are allowed to get gaming, you know, and we never really know. You know, it's kind of out of the tribe's hands at this point. You know, it's up into the state legislation now about if they are allowed to get gaming. But one thing, the way I look at it, if they do get gaming, you know, that should be able to give us the same right to be able to go there also. And if we wanted to do gaming, because, you know, we've got the third license, that would give us, in my opinion, that would give us our right to go. Then if we wanted to build right beside them, build us a casino right beside them to help with the loss. I believe it's a 30% loss that we would receive from, that would impact our casino. And, you know, if the Catawbas would do it in South Carolina, I don't think really nobody would have a problem with it, because that'd be on their territorial land. What my biggest concern is with if the Catawbas are allowed to do it, about the other Indian tribes in other states start moving into different states that's not their territorial land and start building casinos. But I'm not against them having a casino, better in their future for their enrolled members, but I'd rather see them do it in their own state.
Thank you, Bo. Bungie?
Yeah, I agree with both. The tribe spent I don't know how much money already fighting this, no doubt. I ain't got no total price on that, but we probably have spent a lot of money trying to help keep them from getting this. So it's in the downstate's hands. But I feel like if we can make some revenue back off of this, if they eventually get this, why don't we, to get revenue back to make up that 30%, why don't we loan them the money? Because they don't have the startup money. Why don't we be the investor part into their casino, and then that way they pay us back until their casino's paid in full. And if they didn't get it paid, then we own that casino in that wherever it's built. Opportunities across the board, because there's 39, I believe, federally recognized tribes on this side of the Mississippi that was poor like we was. When we first started, we didn't have a casino. Some of them's in worse shape than we were. Some of them just now getting started. There's just recently 5 federally recognized tribes in Virginia. They also seeking to look to build casinos. So to take back some of the revenue that we may lose if this happens, I don't see why we can't be the loan person to get them started up, so they would have to pay a percentage back to us. That would make up some of the revenue, because I don't think right now we've paid everything back to Harris. We've been dealing with them 20 years, and we still not paid in full. So it would be a long-term relationship with that tribe, plus advancing that tribe and making them better at the same time, and helping our work relationship with other tribes across the country.
Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea, you got a minute for follow-up if you like.
Yeah.
And Bo? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do I go?
Yes, go ahead. 1 minute.
So, you know, I think we need to stay on top of this issue and have several contingency plans on what we're going to do. If the Catawba are allowed to do this, you know, like I don't have anything against them either, nor, you know, whatever. But my point is that it could set a precedent that other tribes can penetrate our markets. And so, with that being said, we do need to have contingency plans on what are we going to do next. We have to be one step ahead at all times.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo, 1 minute. And Bunzy, anything on this? Okay. Next question goes to Bo. What are your thoughts on cannabis and its economic potential for the EBCI?
I know right now that there's a study that's getting ready to go. I believe it might be the second study the tribe's done on the cannabis. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what happened with the first study. You know, it was put out there and that they say it's a real big revenue right now with the cannabis, but it's still waiting on the study to be done. But I know you probably think I'd go back to the referendum a whole lot, but I believe that'd be another issue that it wouldn't be just for 12 people to make a decision on. You know, on a big issue like that, I know with alcohol, we go to a referendum, and I think of anything that would be to the cannabis, the hemp, you know, the medical marijuana, any of that stuff, it would need to go out for a referendum to let the whole tribe vote to put their, let their voices be heard that way.
Thank you, Bo. Bunzy?
Yeah, you know, this is a double-edged sword, this is. But in saying that, we have to look at the regulations of all this, that when we grow it, how secure are we going to keep this? I believe one of the crops last year that they growed is this hemp down at the Kadua Mound didn't get fully processed the way the experiment was down there wanting to go with. Somebody come by and took it on their own without the tribe's knowledge. They end up finding it, but these are some of the things that we're going to come across. Not only that, we don't have enough lands to grow this agricultural. I know at one time tobacco was a big thing around here, but if you look back all today, most of these fields are grown up, or they got houses development sitting in them, or stores sitting in them. So we're not an agricultural base anymore to grow anything of this anymore on this part. And who's going to grow it? That'll be another staffing program on that part, because you have people who have to grow it and tend to it, because there's a lot of regulations on it. And then in saying that, if the tribe goes that way on a referendum on any part and they want to proceed this, why don't that be part of the LLC? Be looking into the states that's already got it passed, and we can distribute it there in that part and be part of a revenue place from the states that's already got it legal and already got everything in place. Might be able to grow it in that state. We ain't got no flat lands around this place, so it'd be hard to nowadays to make the agricultural fit to that. But I agree with Bo, it'd have to be through a referendum, just like the alcohol on that part. There's many medical purposes for it, but also that has cons on it too, pros and cons both ways. So that'll be weighed out to each individual.
Thank you, Bungy. Chelsea?
So as a sovereign tribe, this is a business opportunity that we could get into, but it's very risky at this point because cannabis is not legal. It's not legal federally or in this state. And so at this time, it wouldn't be worth the risk because of unforeseen consequences. And that's just where I would stand on it too. I couldn't support it right now because it would be too risky for our tribe to get into.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo, 1 minute follow-up.
Yeah, and it'd be going back to, you know, right now, any good property we have right now, you know, with our housing needs that we have, that's what we need to be more focused on. You know, putting housing out there for our enrolled members. And at this point now, you know, we don't even know what the cost, how expensive it would be, or what the return would actually be. But I guess that'd be what the study would be. But I'm in the same as Chelsea right now, that at this time I just couldn't support it at this time.
Thank you, Bo. Bungy, minute follow-up.
I agree. I mean, with all of them, at the study part, you can see the ones that's already got it. There's already a lot of cons coming out of that. So I don't think it's something that we need to invest in at this time. It's a quick money maker, but it'll be gone in 6 months to a year, so it's not something substantial that we can go down the road on and keep making up revenue off of, because if the whole nation passes it, then everybody's got it. So then if everybody's got it, they ain't gonna be buying it from you no more. They're gonna be growing their own or buying it from a local person.
Thank you, Bunzy. Chelsea, any additional on this? 1 minute.
So I would like to see the results of the study and, of course, get more community feedback. At the same time, make sure that there's awareness out there of what the feasibility study suggests or recommends before anything is acted upon.
Thank you, Chelsea. Next question is for Bunzy. Bunzy, are you comfortable with the current levels of transparency in government? Do you support public access to all government budgets and procedural documents?
I think transparency is a big thing for our tribe. I think it should be transparent of all our things that we have. It's not personal issues. A lot of times that gets brought out in times when it shouldn't be. But transparency for the tribe, no doubt, as a tribal member, if I need to know something that was happening in a meeting, it should be my right to have that given to me, or copies of minutes, or who voted on what, because then you know, the people knows from their community what you stood on or which way you voted on that part. Not only just in our council, I think it needs to happen across the board on some of the committees that we have. I feel like some of our committees are making decisions, then it's failed upon our council members, and then they have no say because of business committee done this, or lands committee done this, or housing committee done this, and then they come back to the council, and it starts a different avenue opened that nobody knew nothing about and get blindsided by. So the transparency and accountability part needs to be there so everybody can see what's going on in that part. So I agree that we need to have more transparency on certain issues, but not all issues that is business part of our tribe.
Thank you, Bunzy. Chelsea?
Yeah. Just in certain conversations, I think that there needs to be more transparency from within tribal programs all the way up to the top. I think that sometimes council can be blindsided by certain things, and I think that in order for council to appear transparent or to be transparent, they need to be knowledgeable of what is happening in programs. But as far as the budgetary pieces, I would support monthly financial reports, like your basic income statements going out to the public, and also have someone available to explain those to any community members that don't understand them. And with the fiscal year budgets, with the exception of the salary pages that have the positions on them listed out with their salaries to the right, I don't think those pages should be included in the fiscal year budgets, but I don't see a problem with those budgets going out to the public because it's the tribe's money, and I think that that would allow for more transparency and for the public to really be able to connect with what our programs are doing as well. The other part of this is, I think that, I think I'm ahead of myself, that the public trust is kind of at an all-time low right now, and I think that it's very important that we start rebuilding the bridges between our community and our tribal government, executive office, and programs. And that's it.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo?
That's one thing I'll have to give your staff here, Robert. At all the meetings and everything now, you have one of your staff members sitting inside all of our meetings. I attend some of the school board meetings also, and I know you have a staff member sitting in the school board meeting, doing a real good job, doing everything that's been voted on, who voted for it, and everything, and that's one step toward transparency, what we're talking about. And going back to with the programs, and I agree about You know, sometimes that they need to come in and ask for stuff that they're needing, you know, and it kind of goes back to the political retaliation part of it about sometimes they're told not to, you know, and with being transparent, you know, right now we've got, I believe our budget was budgeted at 82%, but I would like to see what it is now with all the budget amendments we've had. You know, I'm pretty sure it's not at 82% now. But that was one thing that I think that when a program's needing something, they need to be able to come in and ask for it. And then keeping the meetings open. You know, one thing like Bunzy had stated, you know, you can go and get minutes for every committee that we've got. There's some of them that just can't be aired. You know, with the business committee, it just they keep minutes of it. With the HIP committee, it can't be aired. The school board, it would have to be just off and on air there. So, but I like where you are starting to send your staff out. And that is part of it there also.
Thank you, Bo. 1 minute follow-up, Bungy.
One of the things I like to see with our council members, I'd like to implement on that part would be each one of them sits on one of these boards or committees. I feel like to keep the other council members from being blindsided, because you see that happen a lot in the council chambers, is they should come back and give a report to the rest of the ones that's sitting around the horseshoe there to at least know what's going on, because a lot of times you'll see other people sitting there and say, well, I didn't know that was going on. So that must be something I'd like to see the council members come back and give a report to each other from the committees or the boards that they sit on, because that helps the relationship for the council. And if we can't work together for the common good, we're just going to keep fighting and divided against the whole thing. So I like to see that, and that would be them accountable, because they make a payroll, and they would hold them accountable for making these meetings and making a report back to each other, and they help our relationship.
Thank you, Bungy. 1 minute follow-up, Chelsea.
The other part of transparency is I really hope that the community club turnouts the numbers can rise even higher than they are. It's growing. I know Big Y and Wolftown's is growing, but you know, our council members, and you know, I can vouch for Bo. He does do this, you know, he does bring information forward, and that's something that I plan to do if I am elected, is to be transparent with information as much as possible during those meetings. Like I said, I do hope that the attendance rises there, because that is a prime opportunity to hear about things that are happening.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo, you got 1 minute to follow up. You good? All right, the next one's to you, Chelsea. Have you read the recently proposed Constitution, specifically what is good and what is not about the document?
Yes, I read it, and a couple of things that I like the pros about it. Right off the bat in Article 1, it talks about the organization of government. In Section 2, the branches of government and the separation of powers. And so I do support a judicial branch. I think it's very needed. It takes away the I guess the political side of executive having that power over the judicial branch right now. The other thing I can agree with is term limits for tribal council. I don't think that needs to be a career path. I think it needs to be a possible jumping stone to something better, or, you know, which could be run for chief or vice chief. But anyway, the cons that I have noticed from it are, one, I think there needs to be representation from each community working on the document. I haven't heard that there's been like a formal invite per community club to have somebody come, and so I think that if there's equal representation from each community, it'll make it more impactful. One of the other cons, not that it's a con toward our people and their empowerment to vote. It's just that if there's something in the Constitution, it's going to take 30% of registered voters to come out and vote on a referendum to change it, to change something. And so with our low numbers right now that come out to the polls, it's a little scary that we could get stuck with something in the Constitution that has a negative impact on our people, and we wouldn't be able to change it, in a timely manner. So that wraps up my cons.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo?
I agree with the Constitution, and when I took it back to both of the community clubs, the Wolftown Community Club and the Big Y Community Club, both community clubs said that at this time they just didn't think that it was ready to be put on referendum for this upcoming election. And I'd put out the ideal about maybe having one person from each community club sit on the Constitution Board. And they all agreed with, with Bunzy being the chairman at Big Y, having somebody from the Big Y Community Club that's active being put on the Constitution Board where they can be coming back reporting to the community. And I agree with the three separate parts of the branch of the government there. And the judicial side of it, I agree. The only one thing that I don't agree with in the Constitution is that they still want it to be an appointed position for the Chief Justice, and I don't agree with that. I don't see how it could be a separate branch of government if you're still appointed by the executive committee there. I think that it needs to be an elected position, and then that would give us a true three branches of government.
Thank you, Bo. Bunzy?
Yeah, I've sat on some of these meetings myself, and actually they have come around to every community. It's not just something that happened 2 months ago or 3 months ago. We've been working with them in our community for the last 2 years and give them opinions and stuff, what they need to do. So they have went around to each community because they requested time at each community club to present this and go over it by article. Also, at every community club council of all the communities meet, they bring this in to every community, all the communities at one time, and go over each article and ask them if there's anything, or whoever's at that meeting, to give any opinions on it or what they need to change. So I've heard a lot of things saying it's from one community. Yeah, they all are from one community. From Yellow Hill, most of them are. But they have worked very hard on that. But they have been to every community. And that's why I feel like, as being the chairman of Big Y, our community meetings are very important to us, to getting information out to our community. I appreciate what Bo does, is bringing stuff to our community on this and them coming there, because that's how we spread it out, because that's the way it was the old days. Other things we post on our Facebook page about this. But I support this and want a constitution, but we claim that we're sovereign, but we ain't sovereign until we have this in place. Some people around here say you're sovereign, and some people say you're not. But we have to have this in place to be very certified as a sovereign nation. There is some places in it that needs to be tightened up, or other people's suggestions put in to improve these. One of the things from the Community Club Council, a young man got to me, asked us, he lived off the reservation. What would he do if he had to come to the reservation and wanted to run as a Wolftown council member, but he lived off? How would that fit in this part? Because according to all the things that we have in place, he can't run. Well, we made suggestions. They come back suggesting if his family is from that community and that's where he was raised, then that would be one of the things that need to be considered. Because our young kids are buying homes off the reservation now. We just had one not too long ago in the paper saying that they had bought off the reservation. So we're keeping them from running for officers or anything else on that part. But the Constitution has some gray areas that needs to be tightened up. I feel like we need to tighten that up a little bit, and then I think it'll be ready.
Thank you, Bunzy. A minute follow-up, Chelsea.
I failed to mention that I do believe that we need a constitution, and I do appreciate all the work that has went into it. Bo and I had a conversation about it, And, you know, my point to there being input from all communities would be, wouldn't it be a great honor if once we have a finalized document, you know, that's ready, to have representatives from each community sign the bottom of the Constitution? You know, what an honor that would be to community members who contributed to it. And so that's all.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo?
You know, I do. I want to also thank the ones that sat on that was on the Constitution Board. You know, they've worked extremely hard on it. But you know, but I do. I know that we need a Constitution, but they're at a really good start right now. I believe there's some stuff that needs to be, you know, like Bunzy said, tightened up there. But I believe we're on the right road to get us the Constitution, though.
Thank you, Bo. Any additional comment? All right, next one's Bo. Bo, how do you change the EBCI working climate and environment so that there is no fear of political retaliation?
Well, you know, that's kind of one thing that I spoke on a little bit ago about the transparency there. You know, it's some of in the programs, you know, different programs know what they need. You know, it's hard for us sitting around the horseshoe knowing exactly what that program needs. When they bring a manager, you know, they hire a manager, they hire a director, put them in that position over the programs, and they know exactly what they're needing for their budget for the upcoming year. And you can tell sitting on budgets, we can ask them, you know, are you sure that's what will this get you through a year? And most of them say, yeah, to get us through a year. But then you can talk to them later, and they said, well, we're having to say, you know, it'll get us through. We're needing this and that. And I wish there was a fix on, you know, I wish there was a magic wand that we could get it to where they wouldn't have to worry about retaliation. But, you know, it's something that needs to be worked on. You know, we need to try to sit down and come up with something. You know, I believe there's the whistleblower law right now to where they can report, but they're not really using it just because they're afraid if her name does get out there that the retaliation will come back on them. But that's just something that the tribe, we need to really sit down and work to try to come up with a solution for that.
Thank you, Bo. Bunzy?
Yeah, I think if we can work towards keeping HR involved with this, or keep it separately, that would keep the retaliation part, or if they were scared on that part. But if we can keep the HR separately, then that would take it out of the political part, I feel like. And so that's where I see that it needs to be separated, so it wouldn't be no retaliation on anybody. And shouldn't nobody be scared about their job just because of their opinion or what they had differences, because we all got differences about opinions about different subjects. But to retaliate against somebody, I don't feel like they should never be in fear of their job, because no doubt they're doing a good job for the tribe, or they wouldn't be working as they are. But I think if we keep it in the HR's hands and policy and procedures, and that was put in place, then that protects that employee all the way through from the front to beginning, because they have rights too also as just the employee. That's in place in other places, and that's how they handle it. So I think we need to follow suit in the same way. That way there was no retaliation against our people.
Thank you, Bunzy. Chelsea?
So one thing that comes to mind is back in February of 2018, the EBCI personnel policies and procedures were taken out of tribal code, and in its place was the Employee Bill of Rights. Since then, you know, the feedback that I've heard is that there's been forms of retaliation happening now. So I would like to support the personnel policies and procedures going back into Cherokee Code to provide the proper protection that our employees deserve. One thing that I will advocate for is I think the secretary positions need to be hired positions. They need to be full-time positions so that we can get qualified qualified individuals, advertise them, make sure we get the qualified individuals. But by having the appointed positions over every division, it allows for political influence. And I think that having them as full-time positions instead of appointed would be a really good way to go to protect our staff. And also, I believe that there should be real consequences for any elected official that has any interference with an employee's morale.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo, you got any additional on this? And Bungie, any additional? And Chelsea, are you good on this question? All right. Next question is Bungie's. What would you do to improve or balance housing opportunities for tribal members and needed workforce?
Well, I recently started working with housing 90 days ago. Working on some of these projects that I've been working on. They're building some nice facilities that out here, high dollar in facilities for people to live in. So I think we have the opportunity for all the apartments and stuff that we have. I know some people want individual homes, but nobody has no land. There's a process. I think through our housing opportunities, we need to better communicate to somebody that's 20, 25, who got a family started. It needs to be streamlined and communicated with them to let them know what procedures they need to follow. If they own land or if they don't own land, it needs to be followed to help them out, because I feel like some of them come in, don't know how to build a home or even get a home, but where to start. So in saying that, we have to make that streamlined for them to help them and get to it, because I know right now, if you had to go get a house starting from zero, you're looking 3 to 5 years from start to bottom. If you own land, it may be 3 years if you got all your ducks in a row and everything ready. This younger generation, we all know, don't want to wait on nothing. They think if I go over them land today, they're going to have a house on it by next Friday. And it don't work that way. So they get deterred from trying to get a home anymore, because it's a long process, and it is a long process, because this is the biggest investment they're going to have in their life, is a home. We already have a bunch of different projects in place that's going through. It just takes time to build them. This past year, it's kind of the rainy weather that we had slowed some projects down, or starter projects, but also we have a few projects that's ahead of schedule. So there just needs to be a streamline for our younger generation, or opportunities to show them a better way to get a home if they want to rent or if they want to get a home, on that process going that way. They have to have the land to start with to get a home, because if not, then they're going to have an apartment or something. So we just need to streamline some of our stuff for homes to get it in a better shape that we need to.
Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea?
One improvement I think can happen, and it's one that I saw when I was working at Housing and Community Development a few years ago, is there needs to be an improved communication process between clients and staff. And that communication process can be improved on the long form. I think that it's a headache to go through the long form process. It's a headache for everyone. And I think, too, with your application processes, those can be streamlined. The communication piece can be streamlined there. It's a big deal to get a house, and it's very stressful. And so I think that we have the opportunities within our programs to help ease that stress. One thing I do think, we can be strategic in how we divide up parcels. When we identify buildable land, we're going to have to start thinking in the terms of neighborhoods. We're not going to have these big lots, with the big yard and so forth. We are going to have to probably move toward, like I said, the neighborhood style of house, where there's maybe 50 feet between houses, or whatever the regulations are to meet those regulations. As far as the needed workforce, and needed workforce. So we do have a need for a workforce here. If we want to have return on investment projects go out there, we have to have housing for the workforce. Right now, we have a lot of jobs out there in all of our different entities around the reservation or the Qualla boundary that only employ a fourth of our population. And so, with that being said, our workforce is made up of non-enrolled members who travel to here to work. And so, I think it's a balancing act of, do we serve our tribal members first, or do we serve the workforce need, the workforce housing needs first, before then? So I'm getting jumbled a little bit. But my point is, in order to have a balance between both, we need to come up with a strategic plan on how to meet the needs of our tribal members, and how do we meet the workforce needs that we need to help drive our revenue opportunities as well.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo?
I know one thing we're going to have to start trying to get probably city sewer to biggest part of the reservation. But at least you get city water and sewer put on to the biggest part of the reservation. You know, that'll cut your lot size down that you'll have to build a house. Right now, the further you go up out of city water and sewer, you have to do a well and septic. You know, you have to build on an acre. So a lot of times it's hard to find a buildable acre the higher you get up on a mountain. So we can start trying to get the city water and sewer run on the whole reservation. You know, that would start helping with the lot sizes for the houses. And then going back in with the housing part, you know, that might be something that the housing board needs to start looking at to try to, you don't want to up the grade a whole lot, but we're probably going to have to up the steepness of the grade for a house site. It's like Chelsea said, we're probably going to get to the point to where you're going to have a road to a house. Probably not much of a yard, you know, but that's what our land is starting to come to, is just having a road and a house site. And that would even help with getting city water and sewer run to the different sites.
Thank you, Bo. Bungie, 1 minute follow-up?
Yeah, some of the land that I noticed while I work with housing that they give us for to build these homes on, they get buying land left and right, but if they bought 100 acres from over this property over here, I feel like some of our NEPA studies need to be done before we even buy that property for negotiation purposes, because if we bought that 100 acres and after we get it and come back and they give it to us to housing, to build houses on, there might be 90 acres on there it's deemed from that NEPA study that we can't use. Then we only have 10 acres. So there's some things in the process that needs to be utilized better. And also with the water and sewer, with the new complexes going up, the water plant probably hold it, but the sewer plant, that's another big issue down Birdtown. That's the only place we got it, and we have to expand, and they expand it to the max.
Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea, 1 minute.
Yeah. One thing I do want to throw out there is that the new complex that's going up in Paint Town, the plans from what I understand is to have it at a market rate rent. Those reports come from what goes on in what the market rate is in the state. I don't know if that's comparable to our cost of living here, and so I think we need to look into that before we set up clients for failure and not being able to afford their rent.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo, 1 minute.
And you know, it's I know right now with the tribe we are getting out and we're starting to do more of the complexes, but you know, still a lot of the people here on the reservation would rather be able to live on their pieces of property. So I think that's one thing we need to sit down with the housing board, or you know, just start throwing them ideals out there, trying to get it to where we are starting to be able to open up more property on people's own property for housing.
Thank you, Bo. That's all of the formatted questions. We'll now read the community questions that have been submitted tonight. First one is to Chelsea. Chelsea, Solid Care is in dire need of a new facility. Where is that on your priority list? And if it's not your first priority, why isn't it? Please explain. Okay. Solid Care is in dire need of a new facility. Where is that on your priority list? And if it's not your first priority, why isn't it? Please explain why.
So actually, it is a high priority because it's an area that actually just had a lot of attention, but not just because of recent attention that it's received, but I think that we have a great potential location. I know that it's been talked for the adventure park to go down there, but I think right below the hospital would be a great location to build and relocate Solid Care. It would be very close to the hospital, and actually transportation may be, there may be a benefit for to have it closer for transportation to be able to haul the patients there. But that is a high priority to me because we do have people in need there that need great care as well as a great facility as well.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo?
I know right now we've got a resolution in for a new Solid Care Center, and at one point we thought about right near the hospital. You know, it's like Chelsea said, you know, have it all to where they're going to be right near any medical need they have. Right now, you know, they're having to go from Birdtown, being sent to the hospital. And with the dialysis center, you know, it needs to be, a lot of them that's in Solid Care right now is on dialysis. So it needs to all be in one building. And with up there with the old water park site is, I think that would be a perfect place, you know, to put something to where it's going to be close enough to the hospital. And even if we do a dialysis center onto the Solid Care there, but that's one of my high priorities also, is a new Solid Care Center.
Thank you, Bo. Bungie?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was around when we built that Solid Care Center. Then I worked for the Boys Club at the time. Touched every block that went in it, but I think it's built very well. Structure-wise, it's still probably got some good structure in it, but if there's a need for a new one, no doubt there is, because we've had too many casualties through the Solid Care because of the distance between there and the hospital. Also, the dialysis center, I remember way back one time there was like 5 of our elderlies that passed away that week because it was too far from the dialysis center at that point in time. So I feel like there's enough room around the existing hospital or above the area where the old DOT is. That's something very close, but it could also be added on to where the crisis center is getting added on to that back part. It was a 120 bedroom facility when we built it. I don't know if there's that many down there now, but sure enough, we could probably have enough room up here if we had to go up, just like the hospital is, to get certain levels, because down there I know they have a memory level, certain wings is different ones, so surely we can go up to help each facility or what the need is for elderly people down there on that part. And to help that out, they have to have competitive wages while they're down there. To keep good staff, you have to have the money to get somebody to come in to take care of our elderly. So the old saying is you pay for what you get. So if we're not keeping our scale up to keep good healthcare people, then our people's going to suffer because we're not getting the needs that meet them. So I'm for a new one if they need it, but I think it needs to be close as it can be to the hospital for their specialties, what they need, and each one's different.
Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea, a 1 minute follow-up?
Yeah. I think too, so should there be a new location, a new building, I think we need to get away from the institutionalized look of a facility and make it look like a neighborhood, give a yard, give a quad to it, or put a quad in there, somewhere where the patients can go and have some peace and serenity and enjoy nature, like you see them out in the parking lot or on the front porch down there, and, to me, that's not a view, that's not, I don't know, that's just not an environment that I think they deserve. I think they deserve something better.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo, an additional minute. Bungie, anything else on this?
Chelsea's talking about a view. They got a good view at the hospital if he's sitting up in the waiting room looking back towards Rattlesnake Mountain. That's pretty good to me. It looks better than my house out. But yeah, I said I agree they need to look into this and make it fit what we need here for our elderly people on that part.
Thank you, Bungie. The next question is Bo's. What new ideas are you or will you bring to council? What new ideas do you have in mind for council?
Okay, is that like maybe a new idea is bringing in for kind of like a revenue or?
Anything.
Okay, I'll tell you one thing that we need to start, in my opinion, start using our surrounding, or our surroundings here. I know the zip line stuff, it's real big right now. The mountain roller coasters, they're real big. I think that's stuff that we need to start bringing in for revenue, trying to make the reservation a destination again. I think that we can not pump in millions and millions of dollars and use what we already have here to be able to bring families in.
Thank you, Bo. Bungie?
Yeah, like I said before, I like the energy efficient thing because ain't no doubt our tribal electrical bill is way up there. So the more that we can cut that down, then that uses more money back to what we could use for other programs or other things that we want to put our budget to. So one of the things I like to do is I like to, not just the facilities that we build, but we need to go back and retrofit some of our buildings back to get away from these fluorescent lights and stuff and go back to LEDs and stuff on that because that cuts down on the energy. Also do a better part on the energy efficient for the tribe. Like I mentioned before on one of the questions, is one of the things I want to, if I got elected, I'd like to implement that when we went to boards and committees, I'd come back and let everybody know on the council what the situation was that was going to come before council next time we had it, so they wouldn't be blindsided, because at least they could help, we already know ahead of time, because it's better that we all have a solution instead of, we all run across problems a lot of times, but also have that solution when you come. So if everybody's in there and knows about it, then they already know about it ahead of time, so maybe they'll have a solution. It's hard to come up with a solution when you're sitting there sometimes and everything's thrown at them. So a heads up on that part, they could come up with an answer for that solution on that part. But that's one of the things I like to implement on the other part is if it was elected, I think I need to be available to the community. As chairman of Big Y right now, I've asked Bo and I told him, and it's one of the things we worked with him, is we made an office up there just for the council member to come see it, because a lot of people don't like to come down and try to hunt them down to the council house. So if they had a time in their schedule that they could put up, they would be available to the community. And then that way, when you came out with your needs, if you had a tree cutting permit you needed or something in that nature, we could have all the forms there so we could help you fill them out and take them down to the proper people in line. That would help some of the ones that don't help out that communication, that streamline of some of our projects, because we have a lot of duplicate programs that we probably need to narrow back down and make one to better sufficient our stuff. So that's some of the things I want to implement, I would like to implement on that part as we move forward.
Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea?
So one idea that I would love to propose actually is more job opportunities for our intellectually challenged enrolled members. And for example, what I'm speaking on is we have enrolled members that are on the autism spectrum, and I'll just speak to the high functioning autism spectrum. And so they may have, some social differences. And so one thing that I'd like to propose is job opportunities. I know of community members that are on the spectrum, and they're brilliant. Their minds are brilliant. There's not a lot of awareness now about, how to interact with our members with autism, and so I think that's huge. I have seen firsthand an employee on the spectrum be disrespected because nobody understood him. And so I think that's very unfortunate and unfair. So I think we need to raise awareness amongst our tribal programs to be accepting and to know how to help them navigate and have a successful career as well. On the other part of that, I would like to propose that HR provides a training for our supervisors and above on how to manage, our intellectually challenged population. I think it's only fair to everyone to have that training.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo, 1 minute additional follow-up.
Okay, yeah, with one other thing, I believe I might have went a little wrong way on what the question was there, but one thing that I would like to see different on being on tribal council there would, a lot of the work sessions, being able to hold them during the evenings. Maybe start having them around 5 o'clock when people's off work, so they can come in and have more input into the work sessions, into the different resolutions that's coming in. So that's one thing that I would like to change if reelected for this upcoming 2 years.
Thank you, Bo. Bungie, 1 minute additional follow-up. And Chelsea, anything else? 1 minute? Okay. Next question is Bungie's. Are you, as a candidate, for or against the full legalization of marijuana?
Like I said before, that's a double-edged sword on that part, because there is pros for this, because let me state it this way, I'm not for recreational. I don't see a need in recreational, but I am for if it's need to be medically. Working with kids in the different places that's on this and the other things, we teach our kids, like I said before in the DARE program, that this is the gateway to other things. So it just opens doors for other opportunities for our younger kids, and we want to keep them off of it. That's the beginning of all our problems to begin with, is to keep kids off of this. So as far as recreational, I will be against that, but for medical purposes and stuff that needs to be done, it's prescribed by doctors. It's in pill form, and oil, a CBD oil, so it has all them good benefits. But as far as recreational, I can't right now go for recreational, but anything that helps with anything else medically, I would go for that part. And it would be governed and doctored through the regulations. That is something we had to put in place as a tribe to follow, because there's a lot of standards for that part.
Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea?
I couldn't support it being for recreational use either. I do think there are benefits to it as far as prescription needs. You read articles about it where somebody talks about the benefits of it as far as people with epilepsy. And, you hear parents talk about CBD and how it can impact their child's life positively. And so, back to my point as far as the medical usage, even as far as someone with cancer, it may give them the opportunity to eat, give them their appetite back, So I can see the benefits of it medically, but I couldn't support it fully, especially not for recreational use.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo?
Yeah, and I'm the same way right now, with the recreational side of it, I could not support for recreation. And with the medical, I know a couple of people in my communities right now that has prescriptions of the medical part. So the medical part, they can be prescribed some of the medical. I don't know what the difference. I don't know if it's not as high potent or what it could be if it was the medical part was legalized. But I know a couple of younger adults that's being prescribed the drops, just to kind of slow their minds down a little bit there. So it's out there. The medical part of it is, but as of right now, supporting the whole thing, there's no way that I could support any of the recreational use.
Thank you, Bo. Bungie, any additional follow-up on that? 1 minute.
Yeah, I think what they're searching for is the THC in it, and there's a difference between that and the hemp. The THC is what helps with the pain and eating disorders and when cancer patients and stuff like that, and helps on the joints and stuff. The CBD oil helps with the joints and stuff like that in therapy. They both mentioned like autism. I have autism, son we're raising now. We questioned that to ask him if he would be willing to do that, to use it. So it's something that we looked into to help him with his autism. But the THC, it's already in pill form, because my mother-in-law, we had to use it when she during her sickness, during cancer. So it's already available medically and federally. So to keep it in that format, that I think it's already in place without smoking.
Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea, 1 minute.
I would just revert back to the feasibility study, cannabis. I think that if this is a direction that the tribe wants to move in, then we need to have the backup to do so, as well as community buy-in as well.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo, any additional on this one? Okay. Next question is Chelsea's. What should the Kadua LLC make as a return on investment? Please answer as a number percentage. That's okay. What should the Kadua LLC make as a return on investment? Please answer as a percentage.
Oh, what should they make, like salary or make on return on investment percentage?
This is an audience question, so I can only give you what's on the paper. What should the Kadua LLC make as a return on investment? Please answer as a percentage.
Well, currently, as it was said earlier, our tribal budget is at 82% of half of the total distribution from the casino, and so I would like for them to make at least 12 to 15% or more. They're just getting started, and so I think that's a good number to start with on a return on investment right now.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo?
Yeah, that's one thing. I believe with the Ho Chunk Nation, I believe with their first year of having the LLC, I believe it was at a 15% was what the return was. But if the question was toward what the board is making right now, the way the board is paid is for the amount of money that they're bringing back into the tribe. They're not set at a certain payment. They've got to bring money back into the tribe, and they've got to pay scale that they go up. The more money they make, they've got a cap that they can reach. The cap that it won't go over the cap. I believe the cap might be $80,000, but they have to earn up to the $80,000. They don't come in making $80,000 a year. It's the more they make for the tribe, the more they can make on for their pay.
Thank you, Bo. Bungie?
Yeah, just the percentage-wise, if that's what it takes to get somebody to look for something that's going to do good for our tribe, of course you're going to pay a higher rate because they're going to work harder for the tribe to get something coming. But even saying that, or even if they was making low rate, they ain't going to look too hard. They just going to feel like ride it out to the 80,000 watt both. So if you had them a little higher rate, they're going to really invest in the tribe and move forward and try to get something going. Also, with the cap on that part, I would say it depends on what they brought in, what we invested our money in. If it takes off, then why wouldn't you give them a bonus? Because it's something that took off for our tribe and we invested more money into. But if it was something that wasn't, then it would be a lower rate. So to me, it would be on depend on what investment they brought forth. Then we could rate that at a different rate or a percentage on the cap part if it took off for us or not. Just like the Seminoles done with the Hard Rock, it took off. So of course that would be something that needed to be on that part. So a percentage, we pay for what we get. So the starting rate would be one thing, but then once it took off, then it would be a cap on top of that.
Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea, an additional minute. Bo, additional minute. And Bungie, you need additional minute on this one. All right. Next question goes to Bo. Bo, there seems to be a division among the Wolftown, Big Y, and Rough Branch communities. How can you unite them for a stronger, more unified community? Repeat it? Okay. There seems to be a division among the Wolftown, Big Y, and Rough Branch communities. How can you unite them for a stronger, more unified community?
Well, I know one thing that we're doing now. The two communities, a couple of fairs ago, the Wolftown and Big Y community had went in. You know, they'd done a float together, just trying to come together as a stronger community. Right now, we're trying to get the gym finished at Rough Branch, so that they could start having their community meetings at Rough Branch at the gym. And I would even like to see maybe a couple of times a year, maybe quarterly, that the three communities come together and meet all together. And I believe that would bring everybody back together. You know, we're working at it right now. We're trying to get the communities more involved with each other. The one thing that we really worked on was just trying to get more participation in the communities. Now we're starting to get the participation in the community, so now it's time to start trying to get the three different communities coming together. And I think with a quarterly meeting would really be helpful, and not only with the communities but with the two elected council members that coming to the meetings. You know, knowing what each community is needing and what the communities are needing as one also.
Thank you, Bo. Bungie?
Yeah, like Bo said, I've been chairman at Big Y for the last 6 years, so that was one of our goals to, because Wolftown, I call them our bigger brother and we're the little brother. I know we have our friendly competitions that we have at the fair and other things, but we still realize we still one community. Because we just growed up that way, because at one time everybody voted at Wolftown. As we got bigger, each community pulled to its own little self-fair, so then it started becoming one little community. But we still knew that we was part of Wolftown. But part of it that keeps us separated is some of our younger generation don't realize that we still one community. Even though I'm from Big Y, they feel like we're not from part of Wolftown. Or Wolftown don't count Big Y or Rough Branch now, because Rough Branch is a community on its own. So it's that stereotype that they've put in through the competitions that's kept hurt some of it. But we've been trying to build that back with Tuff here lately, the chairman at Wolftown. We do a lot of unified stuff with them, even meetings. We have the debate up there not too long ago that was started with us trying to get our communities back together and doing community activities back together. Them hosting one thing and we hosting another thing. Now Rough Branches is now starting back up. So, and I had put it out to all our communities that we'll help anybody, any other community to get going. 3,200 acre tract right now, they need to get started going again with Birdtown. So anything that we had in our communities, we teach in Wolftown, we teaching, and we be willing to teach Rough Branch, and not just our communities that's joined together, but to help other communities on grant writing or anything else that assisted us to help us out. So those are the things that we've got forth, what we've been working on to try to help each other out. Because if we don't help each other out, we're just going to be sitting still, and we won't grow. And if your community ain't strong enough, then we ain't going to grow, because we're going to be divided, and then everybody knows the division, we won't go nowhere. So that's some of the things we've been working on the last 6 years with the chairmen and the officers of Big Y and Wolftown right now, to get that back and get our sense of pride back into our community, and people to come out and support the communities, because we need that community support at the meetings and get back to the way we're supposed to be, a tight-knit community.
Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea?
You know, I've had a conversation with a person who lives up on Rough Branch, and you know, I hated to hear it, but they labeled that area as where the forgotten live. And you know, I think we need to think about the root cause as to why there's a separation, why things are siloed. I believe that we should go door to door up there and get a consensus on, you know, what are your needs in this community? What do you feel that you need to help us bridge those gaps between communities? I do suggest that once the building is ready to go, that there are meetings hosted up there, whether it's community club meetings or if there's a project that we want to work on, then let's have it at those locations. Even events, you know, have events up there at Rough Branch, you know, in Wolftown and Big Y. But I think one thing too, I think we can connect Rough Branch back to Wolftown's community club by possibly identifying somebody up there that could serve as an officer. I'm not saying that we, you know, get rid of the current officers by no means, but I think that's a possibility to get the re-engagement back. But that's it.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo, you got 1 minute for additional, and Bungie, you've got a minute. All right, Chelsea, any other comment on this question? Next question is Bungie's. Bungie, how do you plan on improving workforce development?
To improve this workforce development, I think we need to teach our younger generation some working skills. And in saying that, I think there's a real need for a trade school. I run across young people that didn't go to college, but they are in our workforce. But they're not really knowledgeable in the job that they're doing. So if we had a trade school or that some sort to teach our younger kids to trade for the work that we need around here for the tribe. We need carpenters, we need plumbers, we need electricians, we need all these positions. And once we get them, then that would help in other aspects of our tribe in different departments to help ease, to develop other things. For instance, at Quality Housing, if we had to build 100 homes this year, we'd have them people in place. And we'd have them opportunity when they completed this trade, they'd have an opportunity to start working for the tribe and helping out the tribe as a whole. Just to build a home, you got to have all of them. You got to have a mason, you got to have an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter. So there's 4 trades right there just to build a home. So if we want more housing, then we got to have our own workforce, I feel like, from our own tribal members and not count on contractors. Because we spend a lot of money on contractors. When we have we're able-bodied people here to help our own self. I think that's what we need to get back to, is helping ourselves with these trades, and that would help out the tribe as a whole. And so I think that'll help out our development across the board in everything that we do.
Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what Bungie said, but I do think that we should have on-the-job training opportunities so that, and while on-the-job training opportunities, while staff are working toward a trade license or certification, I think that would be great, because at the same time, you're also getting that education piece that you need to do your job, but you're also getting the hands-on training. The other thing, I think we need to be in support of HR's initiatives to provide training. And, you know, they are starting to roll out supervisor training, which hasn't been done before. And I think that that has a lot of potential for our workforce development. One of the projects that I have been a part of at PHHS is a cultural onboarding training for our family safety workers. And so when a social worker comes on board, and if they're a non-enrolled member, they're going to have the opportunity to be trained on our culture, history, and traditions. And within that also our historical grief and trauma. And so I think that the more we can provide opportunities for our staffing to be able to integrate themselves, not only within their programs, but out in the community, we're going to serve a greater purpose.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo?
And you know, one thing too, I think that we need to start getting into the school systems. You know, coming in and start offering more summer programs through the different programs for the tribe. Having probably starting them out maybe the 10th grade, 10th, 11th grade, somewhere around there, getting them start coming out, helping out with the programs that the tribe has. You know, seeing what they're interested in, letting them do a couple years through a summer project there. And like Bungie said, with the trade school, I think that's one big thing that this tribe, if we ain't got the property to do it, we need to, you know, maybe go to Southwestern and try to, you know, tell them this is what we're needing, and sit down and work a deal up with them to where we can start sending our enrolled members there to pick up a trade. But that's one thing that I really think that would help our workforce, would be having a trade school.
Thank you, Bo. Bungie, a minute follow-up?
Yeah, as everybody's talking, you know, we used to have a CEDAR program and a JTPA program when I grew up, and all this was established back then to help us when we growed up, is have our work ethics to get up and go to work and give us a sense of responsibility. Right now, the Job Corps, even though they was going to close and they opened back up now, we have a partnership, because my wife works there. We have a partnership already with the Job Corps for the trades. So any of our kids that don't want to go to college or in that part, it's already set up for them to come over to get a trade. If it's not a trade that's there, then they work with them, try to get them somewhere else, a different trade when they complete. Well, that's already set up. Swain County's high school utilizes this very well. They had 8 kids that just graduated with a trade not too long ago while they were still in school. So we have it right across the road, but we ain't utilizing it already. And maybe that'll keep them open and won't have to worry about them closing, because it's something that's already in place that we ain't paying for, but we ain't utilizing it. So that would be that's the partnership that we have with stuff. So I really think that would be help out some of our kids and moving forward with the work programs that we need to establish and the need for the tribe on workforce.
Thank you, Bungie. Chelsea, 1 minute.
I think one thing that we fail too as leadership in the tribe is succession planning. You know, when we need to look at that and connect it to opportunities that our students have with their skill sets and what career paths that they can go into, and how it can connect back to somebody who's getting ready to retire. A lot of the times there's a hole, you know, and at every level of staffing. And so I think succession planning would be great to have. We need a model for succession planning so that we aren't left with a hole and that we can backfill those slots with students that are coming out of our system.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo, 1 minute. All right, thank you, Bo. That brings us to the closing statements. The candidates will now have up to 5 minutes each to make closing statements. Chelsea, you're first.
Well, I want to thank everybody that supported me through the primary. I'm very grateful for it. And I also want to thank all the tribal programs that helped put on this candidate debate, as well as Bungie and Bo for coming out. One thing I do want to say is that, you know, I'm running with the highest of integrity, and with a clean campaign as well, and I intend to keep doing that. Some things that I do want to see happen is, sorry, I'm stumbling a little bit. One thing I do want to see is more communication prior to budget and tribal council as far as financial reporting. I think that we have a finance office that can provide good, solid information as far as data goes to help prepare tribal council for budgetary resolutions that come through. But I do want to thank everybody for this evening, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. Bo?
Yeah, first off, I'd like to thank everybody that had a hand in putting this on. I'd like to also thank the Wolftown and Big Y community for putting me through the primaries, and I hope that they give me the opportunity to be their voice for 2 more years for them. And if so, I look forward to working with them, you know, just being the voice for the community there. And it's something that I really, every day I enjoy what I do, and working for the communities. I try to take everything back to the community clubs. I know there's some stuff that I could probably do better, and that's something the communities can let me know what I need to work on, and I'll be more than happy to work on it. But I just want to give them just thank them again for the opportunity of making it through the primaries, and hoping that they'll re-elect me to be their voice for the next 2 years.
Thank you, Bo. Bungie?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody that went out and supported me during the primary, and the support everybody gave me. And, it was something that was planned a long time ago, I guess, but just the opportunity wasn't there because of work and stuff. But I've been working 6 years with the communities, Big Y and Wolftown. So the door had opened to run, so that's why I decided to run. I feel like I do it part-time now because I work a full-time job and I always have. And then everything that happens with the community does after hours. So a lot of home things already get put on hold. But I enjoy helping people. That's what I enjoy doing, is helping people. So I just feel like if I got put in, it's just a continuation of what I'm already doing, but at a fuller scale, because you're only getting part-time of what I do now. So to get in, it would be something I could do full-time to help our community and also our tribe on that part. I see that standing on the outside, working for the federal government for 20 years, and on the outside to see the tribe coming now, you see a lot of things that's passed before your eyes that you don't see is new avenues that might need to be taken as we move forward, things that's kept us from moving forward. So I just would like to improve on them things and try to get around some of these obstacles so we can move forward. If we don't try to go move forward, we're going to be stuck in the same place. And that's not what I want to see our tribe to do. We need to progress forward on this part. So that's some of the things I just want, if I get elected and get put in, that's some of the things I would like to improve on, because just what you see, it needs to be improved on. And just thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to be here and all the staff that's here and everything that's been put on. I appreciate everything.
Thank you, Bungie. We would like to once again thank the candidates for their participation and willingness to serve. We encourage all tribal members, regardless of who you vote for, to make your voice heard in the 2019 Tribal Council elections. Please exercise your right to vote. We thank you all so much, and we appreciate you. Good night.